So this process log, part of our course is really thinking and reflecting about what it means to be a reader and a writer, and what it means to grow as a reader and a writer. So, in addition to doing the work of writing in the course, you'll also be really reflecting on and revising your thinking about your writing process and your identity as a writer and researcher throughout our time together. So, you can see that we have 16, all 16 weeks in this first column. So for each week, you're going to fill out this process log, and over time, you should be able to look back on where you were, revise your thinking about where you were that week, move through your understandings by tracking and answering your own questions, thinking about how your to do list evolves, thinking about how the kinds of notes and ideas and insights that you've had grow and change over time. So that's kind of the goal of this process log. It'll help you with your reflective memos and your midterm and your final portfolios, and it'll also help me see your progress as a kind of evaluation tool, and also as a teaching tool as I decide what choices to make about how best to teach you and how best to facilitate learning in a class where I can't see your faces or hear your voices except through your writing. So that's kind of the goal of this document. But now let me walk you through the practical aspects of it. So you can see that I've downloaded a version and I've gone to File and I've saved as, and I've given it a name that makes sense to me as a reader and writer, but also would make sense to me as a teacher, right? So I've given it a name with my last name and process log, and maybe I take out the word template, right? So this is my process log, and then I would click save, and I would save it in a place where I could access it week to week, that I would always be coming back to the same document. So for week one, I will have filled this out and saved it, and then I'm going to go back to that same document week two and fill it out and upload it with week one and week two completed at the end of week two. So that's kind of how it works in the journals in eCampus. In terms of the content that you're recording in this journal, so let's talk about that. So for week one, if there were any readings that you felt were particularly important or things that you want to be sure to remember from the readings, you're going to fill in this first box with just notes. So you're not commenting on what you've read, you're just kind of keeping track of the information that you think is going to be critical or that you think is really important for that week's readings. In this ideas and insights box, you might use that to respond to the notes that you've taken, right? So this week, if I'm making some notes about the Allen reading, for example, then I might comment on what she said, right? So what Allen said about the inspired writer, I might record my own ideas and my response to that reading in this second box. I might also keep track of my ideas for future writing. I might keep track of where I plan to go with the next assignment that's coming up, which is the annotated bibliography, or I might make any notes on things that I want to remember for myself as I'm thinking about the class in the second box. In the third box, I'm writing questions. So they might be questions that I have about the readings or how to do something. There might be questions that I have for my instructor, or they might be questions that I have for myself about what my plans are for next steps for my writing. This revisions box can be any change in your thinking. So it can be a change in your thinking based on something that you read, but it can also be a change in your thinking based on the feedback that you got for a paper, or what changes you want to make. So it might be a change in the way that you're reading something, or it might be a change in the way that you're experiencing the course, or it might be a change in your writing, something that you really want to revise or re-see. So don't think of revisions as just writing revisions, but they can be revisions in your thinking too. And then this last box is the to-do list. So it's anything that you need to do before the next class. It's anything that you intend to do. It's anything that you might do to keep track of your organization, because an online class, especially an online writing class, requires a lot of organization. So that's there to help you keep track of what you're doing and how you're doing it. So that's how you'll fill this out week to week. The other section that I want to call your attention to are these highlighted boxes, and these are for responding to your papers. So when you turn in a final for now draft, like the annotated bibliography, which is the first one, which we'll be talking about this week and next week, when you turn in that final for now draft, you're going to upload a copy of it into the discussion board and get feedback from your classmates. But you're also going to get a video similar to this one with feedback from me. And so then when you have that in this first box, you'll take notes on what feedback you're getting. So it doesn't have to have any commentary. It's just like Dr. Morris said this. My classmates said this. So you'll make a list of the things that you want to remember as you're watching the video or as you're reading feedback from your classmates. Ideas and insights then are anything that you plan to do or that feedback from me or from your classmates made you think about. So any new ideas that you got from hearing or reading that feedback, or maybe even rereading your own writing. Pressing questions can be anything that you want to know. So it can be questions about what you've written, questions about how to do something that I've directed you to do, questions about what comes next in that piece of writing, or questions you want to ask yourself, reflective questions about your thinking and your writing. Revisions can be revisions that you intend to do with that piece of writing, and then after you've done them, they are it's a list of the revisions that you have done, and that'll help you as you're writing your midterm and final portfolios to chronicle the changes that you've made in your papers. And then again, the to-do list is anything that you plan to do or intend to do. So it might be how you're thinking, what you need to do in terms of reflection, what you need to do in terms of revision. And then after you filled all this in, you want to make sure that you save it every time and upload it as it continues throughout the course of the semester. So then at the end, that final portfolio, you're going to have your completed process log included in that final portfolio with your comments and your thinking. And I hope that it really reveals something to you about your learning and your growth, and also for me about my teaching throughout the course of the semester.